r/ask Reddit. What did the most drunk person say or do last night at your party? I was the most drunk at my friend's party. Around 11:55 I started freaking out because I didn't have any 2017 glasses. So I ran and got some paper and some scissors to DIY that shit. While sitting on the floor trying to craft some glasses out of paper, the clock strikes 12, and while everyone starts cheering and kissing, I sit on the floor with scissors and papers hysterically crying because I didn't have any New Year's Eve glasses. I was DD and my friend had to puke, so we pulled over and he threw up in the street/sidewalk. It's a small town and we were parked for probably 5 to 10 minutes. I was looking for cops because I wasn't sure of the legality of him throwing up in the street regarding littering or whatever, and small town cops in Delaware can be sort of dickish. He was finishing up when a cop rolled by. He drove past us and didn't stop, but he turned around and drove past again. He went down the street and around a corner, so I assumed we were safe. I drove down the street and shortly after the cop rolls up and pulls us over. I'm sober so I'm not too worried, but when he walks up to the car he has a bottle of water in his hand and asks, "Hey, do you guys need this?" looking at my friend slumped over in the back seat. We all laugh and thank him and he lets us go on our way. I know he was doing his due diligence making sure I wasn't drunk, but he was cool as shit about the whole thing. Me and my friend made an addition to 10 jars of Everclear concoctions, spiked gummy worms. At one point someone had tongs to take out the worms from jars and fed it to one of the girls at the party. He said he felt like a mama bird. In my drunken wisdom, I decided I wanted a mama bird too and proceeded to flap my arms like a bird and squawk, and was rewarded with a delicious worm. Cue about 10 people then squawking and flapping their arms in unison as we were being fed spiked gummy worms by a drunk man with tongs. What a time to be alive. This lady was much drunker than everyone thought and no one realized until around 12:10 am when her husband tried to get her to leave and she grabbed him by the throat and pushed him down some stairs. He got up, dusted himself off, and calmly walked out the front door. She attempted to sober up in the dining room while someone downloaded Uber to her phone so she could get home. I felt bad for the guy, but secretly I was so happy to see he said F this and bounced completely. So I spent New Year's Eve at my girlfriend's place. For a little bit of background, her entire family mostly speaks Spanish. I, on the other hand, speak next to no Spanish. Anyways, at midnight everyone starts hugging each other and one of her uncles comes over to me and speaks in very broken and slurred English that he doesn't know me and I don't know him, but that's going to change. That he can see that I make my girlfriend happy and that makes him happy. That he respects me a lot for spending 8 hours with people when I don't understand at all what they're saying. That I'm now a part of his family. Probably not the type of comment you all were looking for, but it was incredibly touching to me. On our way home after the party we got pulled over by a cop for taking too wide of a turn. It was raining pretty hard and our DD wasn't super familiar with the area. This is when the drunk asshole laying across the backseat starts panicking and screaming, saying he knows we are getting pulled over because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Long story short, cops don't appreciate it when they can tell someone's freaking out in the back of a car they are walking up to. Luckily he was a cool guy, ended up giving our DD a sobriety check and sending us on our way. We apologized for the actions of drunk people, but it was pretty late and the cop just seemed glad we had a sober DD. But I don't recommend reaching out through another person's window to try to grab at a cop, even if you're just trying to get out a drunken apology. A really drunk guy took the giant bowl of noodle salad and started trying to feed everyone with it. He would walk up to people and put a spoon in their mouth. It was pretty hilarious. He also tried selling his scarf because he owed some guy money, so he would just casually ask everyone if they wanted to buy his scarf. So, bunch of us were after partying in my apartment and a friend of mine left walking these two girls home. Before leaving, the party was going on, so my friend said that he will call from the down door so someone could come and let him in. Well, as he returned, This plan didn't work out after all. He wandered around the building for a solid hour trying to desperately reach someone. People inside were full on passed out. Luckily, he thought, a janitor was taking garbage out, so my friend managed to sneak into the building at 6 in the morning. His troubles didn't end here. He violently knocked on the door, waking up everyone at the building but us. After a couple of hours he gave up and tried to unsuccessfully sleep on the cold stairway of the corridor. About 12 o'clock someone woke up and heard him screaming behind the door and let the guy in. Legit first night of 2017 for him. I worked as a coach check last night and the amount of people that forget their ticket is unbelievably high, but my favorite was a lady who forgot her ticket and just kept telling me it was a long coat. So every time I would show her a coat she would just slur out, "No, it's long," and gesture like she was doing the wave. After the 15th try I found it. Her husband didn't tip. Got a drunk high five from the lady though. Had a pleasant evening drinking wine, whiskey, and playing board games. Also smoked a couple joints. I'm doing sober January, so cut myself off at 11:59. Found out my roommate, not at the party I went to, is in the hospital with part of his skull broken and blood leaking in his brain. Still not sure what the deal is. Having coffee and nursing my hangover, then headed to the hospital to visit him. It was all quiet that night. You could almost hear a pin drop. Some might call our party a bore. However, we enjoy the company of fellow aristocrats. We sat still, quietly sipping our whiskeys and staring intently into the burning fireplace, lost in thought by the sound of crackling wood. Just then, the grandfather clock chimed 12, the witching hour. From the distant corners of our carpeted floors and wooden furniture, we could hear faint fireworks and the screaming of proletariat. At that instant, my buddy George rose from his seat and announced, almost in a whisper, "Happy New Year, fellow brethren." The lot of us were astounded by his outburst. However, we all kept our cool and nodded patronizingly and tipped our whiskey glasses in his direction. I guess that silly drunk little nitwit won't be joining us next year. We were at a black tie event and our drunkest guy started a conga line and took it from the dance floor to a table, took the bottle of wine and counties the conga line, drinking from the bottle. The staff ended up pouring it a glass and were really cool with him until they found him in the linen closet about to piss, and when confronted he said, "I had to go somewhere." His last act of infamy was sneaking behind the bar when the bartender was serving someone and stealing bottle of beer. Ended up taking about 6. Offered them to us and we declined, and then he got mad that we didn't want his stolen beer. Also, it was an open bar. He only had to wait 1 minute and he would have been served. Or maybe cut off. Lol. His girlfriend spent the rest of the night apologizing to us because of his weirdness. The most drunk guy at my party last night picked up our dog, a pug, and slowly moved it closer and closer to my friend's face. My friend started by asking, "Why is there a dog in my face?" Then the dog kept getting closer. Drunk guy ended up literally pressing the dog's face against my friend's face while staring him down. My friend just stared back. They stared at each other for about 15 seconds. 0 words were spoken. Dog on face. Then the drunk guy just walked away with the dog. Drunk buddy tried to shoot a firework holding it in his mouth. He tightened too hard. The firework never flew and exploded right on top of him. He ended up with the face completely black from the powder and some small burns on his face. 2 policemen were next to us when this happened. They told him it was the most stupid things that they had seen this year, and yes, we were still in 2016. I was the most drunk person at my party because I was the only one drinking and my wife and kids were in bed. I started drunk texting people at midnight. I told around a dozen of my friends that I love them over text. I was just being honest, but I'm a little bit embarrassed about it. Edit. Well, apparently drunk texting friends to tell them you love them is both very common and completely acceptable. Thanks everyone. Also thanks for the gold, kind stranger. I love you so much, man. My friend started belting out the theme tune to an old British kids show called Puddington Peas. Then he started crying and said when I was a kid there was an episode about a fucking pea who was too fat to get out of his house. All the other peas tried to help him, but they couldn't get him out. I remember identifying with that pea. That pea was me. He cheered up once we bought him a kebab.